Thanks, Scott. And I think we'll look forward in a couple of years' time to that bill getting drawn out of the biscuit tin at Parliament. So, people have been very assiduous. Many experts have been consulted to assemble a list of questions, and I believe you will be sending questions through the chat function to Will Anglin, who is going to feed them on to me. But I have a list of initial questions to go through, and there are some interesting ones here, some challenging ones here. Janet, would you like to have first go at this one? Nearly half of New Zealand's greenhouse gas emissions come from energy use, and we have to get this down to zero by 2050 to meet New Zealand's commitments. What's the path we should be taking to get there? So you first, Janet, and then over to the other two.
Right. Well, that's a big ask, and I do have a screen share that if I can do it, I would like to share my screen, but if it's not possible, Will, don't worry. Right, I'm the host, so I've just got a diagram I'd quite like to show people.
Yes, we're going very high tech now. Excellent work.
Very high tech. Okay, so this is a flow diagram of new. It's just to show people the scale of the problem and where the solutions are going to lie. So on the left hand side here, we have the where the energy comes from in the first place, and then all of the various changes it goes through to then become used in various use categories on the right hand side. So what we have between now and 2050, 30 years, oh, sorry, I will, my animations are not working, so this is very early. So anyway, you can imagine from in the second column there, all of that natural gas, all of that coal, all of that refinery feedstock, which is fossil fuels, has to go, and the place is going to be picked up, which is going to require 1.5 to twice as much electricity production as in this little brown bar called electricity. So the question is, how are we going to get there, and what is the means for that? And my work in this space is suggesting that we're going to have to do two things, and we often forget the second. One is clearly to look at what are the many opportunities there are for, I'm just stopping my share here, for generating more electricity. There are other options such as hydrogen starting to peak around the corner, but that's going to have very, very niche applications. Biofuels are too expensive at the moment. Electricity has huge potential to address the transport and industrial needs, and that's where we've got to go. But as well as look at where can it come from, which is clearly going to be areas like wind, a bit more geothermal and solar, we've also got to seriously look at what happens on the right-hand side of that graph, which is where it's used and how it's used. Mm-hmm. And so when governments are looking to the sorts of changes they need to make, it's not just how do we create more supply, but how can we deal with people? It's the people on the far end, it's the businesses, the individuals, it's the households. How do we engage with people in order to create quite a different energy system that's going to be far more low carbon and far more fair and accessible to all? And so my message, if I had a clear message here, is that our best solutions lie right under our noses. They lie in the wind, they lie in the sun, they lie in our hot water heaters, our power lines, our light bulbs, our insulation, our wood burners, and also some of the more newer technologies such as EVs and batteries. But all of those things are critically part of the solution.
Yes, thanks, Janet. Scott or Ralph, do you want to follow up on that one? Ralph's got the voice first and then Scott.
We've got to do it in alphabetical order. I'm pleased that Janet worked her share screen too, because I'll try mine again later. It wasn't just me, I'm sure. But going back to Scott's point about community schemes, and which answers the pathways question as well. In Europe, of course, there are community schemes for biogas plants and wind farms and a whole range of bioenergy activities. I went to a town, Vaxure, in Sweden maybe 15 years ago, and they were aiming for 100% renewable energy. The point is, it's the local governments driving these in many respects. So in order to get the pathways in New Zealand, we can't just wait for national government and select committees and legislation to come through, because local district city councils are much more sleek and can activate actions very quickly. I'm just reviewing, in fact, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, I'll tell you anyway, but you're all sworn to secrecy, the Auckland City Council climate plan, which is very impressive. And so that's just one example. Palmerston North, where I live here, has got its own climate plan as well. And just down the road from me, literally 5 kilometres, where I'm allowed to go for my bicycle rides up the Turitea Valley, Mercury Energy are building their brand new wind farm as we speak. And that's got a Palmerston North City Council share in the action as well. So let's let the local governments drive things wherever they can. Let's encourage that. And that's what I think, in order to get the pathways there, then the national government should be assisting wherever possible there.
Thanks, Ralph. Scott?
I mean, I think I can look at both of those responses, and there's fantastic wealth in there. I mean, I think there's no silver bullet. Clearly, it's not a single issue. That it's a system we've got to look at. But as Janet says, we have everything at our fingertips, and I think Susan Krumjic pointed out that the best energy return on energy invested comes from fossil fuels, but we can't use them anymore. So where can we look next? And energy efficiency or energy demand reduction is one of the greatest gains we can make. So that points to electrifying our transport system, prioritizing public transport over individual transport, and ensuring that local government has the incentives and can do so with state assistance, but can drive that. It also points to making sure our building stock is hyper efficient, and that's where we've got massive gains to make, because it's not just about reducing our climate impact, it's about improving the well-being of our whole community, and that's really important for climate justice. We don't want to create an emissions pathway that makes our most vulnerable even more vulnerable and endure greater hardship. So an emissions reduction pathway has to ensure that we are looking after those in need. So on a demand side, there's lots we can do, but I think on the supply side, we've got the wind power that we need. We need a massive investment in wind power. We have our assets that we might need to look at different ownership models for our large scale assets, our hydro, our geothermal. And we might see a diversity of portfolio ownership for wind power and solar at a community level or on individual households. And those things can be incorporated through what's grid edge technology or Internet of Things. So instead of, because electricity, it's very hard to store, but we can move it around intelligently through using data, through using clever algorithms. And we're finding that now we have the ability to do that. We've got smart grid development happening in New Zealand. And we're unfortunate with the Bradford re-regulation rather than reforms. We've enabled a whole lot of innovation, but we've created this broken up and having competing parts of a system that makes it really hard for us to see how we're going to get there. And fortunately, we've got a government that set the zero carbon goal. And I'd follow up with Ralph that I think our territorial authorities can be a really important player in this journey. And we've seen it, we've got that in Dunedin. Dunedin's council, city council, has put a net zero carbon pathway of 2030 in place. Now that's hell of an ambitious, but imagine if we can drive that at a city level. Imagine the power that will have for helping other territorial authorities make that type of switch. So I think we can't look for the one silver bullet, but we have everything there right in front of us, and we've got to go for it. We've got to grab it. Fantastic. 7 billion to invest in a train network, by the way. That's a good Green Party policy that we would like to put into place.
Leaving aside a small amount of local grievance in Dunedin that it didn't quite come far enough south yet.
That's right.